She walked in Eden before Eve was even a whisper in the mind of God. Her name was erased, her memory buried, her story forbidden. Lilith, the first woman, the forgotten one, the name that was never meant to survive. But some truths refuse to stay silent. This is the account of the woman who defied paradise, who chose freedom over perfection, and whose legacy still haunts the shadows of the world. In the beginning, before the fall, before the serpent, before the fruit that would damn all creation, Eden bloomed in perfect stillness. The garden was more than beautiful. It was the blueprint of paradise itself, where every leaf shimmered with purpose, where every stream sang with clarity, where the air itself tasted of something humans would spend millennia trying to recapture: innocence. Adam walked alone through this perfection, his feet making no sound on the soft moss, his breath mingling with the wind that carried the scent of jasmine and cedar. He was not lonely, not yet. The concept did not exist for him. He named the creatures as they passed before him, his voice giving shape to leopards and larks, to serpents and sparrows, to every living thing that crawled or flew or swam through Eden's waters. But with each naming, with each pair that walked away together, something stirred in the depths of his being. A question he did not yet know how to ask. The animals moved in pairs, male and female, complementing each other, completing each other, and Adam walked alone. God knew. The Creator who had breathed life into dust, who had spoken light into darkness, who had separated the waters and called forth the dry land, he knew. And so he decided to create another. But this time, the creation would be different. Not an animal to be named, not a creature to obey, an equal. From the same dust of the earth that had given form to Adam, from the same primordial clay, God shaped a woman. Not from Adam's rib, not yet. Not as a helper fashioned from his side, but from the earth itself, autonomous, independent, formed by the same divine hands that had molded the first man. Her name was Lilith. And when she opened her eyes for the first time, the garden itself seemed to shift, as if recognizing that something new had entered Eden, something unpredictable. The first time Adam saw her, the world seemed to hold its breath. Morning had just broken over the garden, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Mist clung to the ground like silk, and through that mist she came. Lilith. Her black hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall of night, each strand catching the early light and transforming it into something darker, richer. Her eyes, crystalline blue, reflected not just the sky, but something deeper, something that seemed to see beyond the surface of things into their very essence. She was not like the creatures he had named. Those moved by instinct, by divine programming, by patterns written into their very nature. Lilith moved with intention, with awareness, with will. Her gaze swept over Eden with an intelligence that matched his own, and when her eyes finally settled on Adam, he felt something he had never felt before: recognition. She approached him slowly, her bare feet leaving impressions in the dew-covered grass. The morning light seemed to bend around her, creating shadows where there should be none, illuminating angles that should have remained hidden. When she reached him, neither spoke. The silence between them was not empty, but full, heavy with meaning, with recognition, with the understanding that they were meant to be. Adam's heart, which had beaten steadily since the moment God breathed life into him, now quickened. "Who are you?" he finally asked, his voice barely more than a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter whatever spell had been cast over this moment. Lilith smiled, but it was not the simple joy he had seen in the animals. It was complex, knowing, almost sad. She studied him as one might study the stars, searching for patterns, for meaning, for truth written in light. "I am your other half," she said at last, her voice like wind through ancient trees, carrying echoes of places Adam had never been, of knowledge he had never sought. "I am Lilith." The name settled over him like a garment he did not know how to wear. "The Creator made you?" he asked, needing to understand, needing to place her within the order of things he knew. "The Creator called me," she replied, her gaze drifting toward the horizon where the garden met the world beyond. "Like the wind is called, like the river is called. My existence does not depend on your understanding, Adam. I am here because Eden needs me." Her words carried weight he could not measure, depth he could not fathom. But he walked beside her anyway, drawn by something deeper than reason, stronger than choice, older than thought itself. For a time, Eden held them both in perfect balance. They explored the garden together, not as master and servant, not as teacher and student, but as equals, discovering a world made for wonder. Each morning, they would wake to the sound of birds creating symphonies in the trees. Each evening, they would watch the sun paint the sky in colors that had no names. But it was in the conversations between sunrise and sunset that Adam began to truly see Lilith. She spoke with wisdom that often overwhelmed him. When they passed a lion resting beneath an acacia tree, Adam would say, "This is the king of beasts." And Lilith would reply, "But what is kingship without subjects who choose to follow? Is dominance the same as leadership? Is power the same as strength?" Questions that had never occurred to him. Questions that unsettled the simple order he had known. When they stood before the tree of knowledge, the one tree God had forbidden, Adam would turn away, accepting the boundary without question. But Lilith would linger. Her eyes would trace the branches, study the fruit that hung like jewels, and she would ask, "Why this tree? What makes this knowledge dangerous? How can we be fully ourselves if there are parts of existence we are forbidden to understand?" Adam had no answers. God had spoken, and that was enough for him. But for Lilith, it was only the beginning of deeper questions. She challenged him, pushed him to think beyond what he had been told, refused to accept simple answers when complexity beckoned. And though it unsettled him, though it sometimes frightened him, Adam found himself fascinated by her mind, by the way she saw connections he could not perceive, patterns he had never noticed. She was not docile like the deer that grazed peacefully in the meadows. She did not defer to him when they disagreed about which path to take, which fruit to eat, which clearing would be best for resting when the sun grew hot. She had her own thoughts, her own will, her own understanding of what Eden could be. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, Adam began to realize that having an equal was far more complicated than he had imagined. But paradise was beginning to change. It started small, a shadow that lingered too long beneath the fig trees, a wind that blew from the east, carrying scents that did not belong to Eden. The river's waters, once calm and clear, began to churn with restless energy, as if something deep below the surface was stirring, waking, reaching upward. The animals grew restless. Birds would stop singing mid-phrase. Deer would freeze, ears pricked, listening for sounds that never came. Even the trees seemed to lean away from certain paths, their branches curling inward as if protecting themselves from something unseen. Adam felt it, but could not name it. Lilith felt it and knew exactly what it meant. One afternoon, as they walked along the riverbank where the water ran deepest, Adam noticed Lilith standing motionless at the edge, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon where Eden's lush greenery gave way to something darker, wilder, the world beyond the garden. "What do you see?" he asked, approaching her slowly, as if afraid to break whatever trance held her. She did not turn. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely audible above the sound of the rushing water. "I see the end of something," she whispered. "The beginning of another." Adam's heart constricted. The end of what? She finally looked at him, and in her eyes he saw something that frightened him more than anything he had encountered in Eden. Sadness, determination, certainty. Knowledge of something he could not see, could not comprehend, could not prevent. "Adam," she said softly, reaching out to touch his face with unexpected tenderness. "There are things I see that you do not. Things I understand that you cannot. Not because you lack intelligence, but because you lack doubt. You accept what you are told. You trust what you are given. You believe that Eden is the beginning and the end of everything. Isn't it?" Adam asked, confused. "No." The word was gentle but final. "This place, beautiful as it is, perfect as it seems, it is not our home, not truly. We were brought here for a purpose, but that purpose is not to remain forever. Creation does not end at Eden's borders, Adam, and neither does our story." "What are you saying?" His voice rose, panic creeping in at the edges. Lilith stepped closer, her hand still against his cheek. "I am saying that the Creator has a plan that goes beyond what we know. And you, Adam, you are part of it in ways I am not. Your path leads one direction, mine leads another. And soon, very soon, those paths will diverge." "That makes no sense," Adam insisted, his hands gripping her shoulders as if he could hold her there through sheer force of will. "We are meant to be together. You said it yourself. We are equals. We complete each other." "I know what I said." Her voice was soft but unwavering. "But destiny does not always align with desire, Adam. And I have learned that being equal does not mean walking the same path." Adam wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers, wanted to shake her until she stopped speaking in riddles. But something in her eyes stopped him. A finality he could not challenge. A truth he could not change. That night, as they sat beneath the stars, Lilith whispered words that would haunt Adam long after she was gone, though he would not remember them. "Something is coming that will separate our paths," she said, her head resting against his shoulder, her voice carrying the weight of prophecy. "When it happens, Adam, remember this. It was not I who left you. It was not I who chose separation. It was the will of something greater than us both, a plan written before we were dust, before Eden was planted, before the first light broke the darkness." Adam held her closer, as if proximity could prevent what she described. But even then, he felt her slipping away, not physically, but in spirit, in essence, in the part of her that mattered most. She was already gone. The days that followed were marked by a growing distance. Lilith withdrew, pulling back like the tide before a storm, leaving Adam stranded on shores he no longer recognized. She spent more time alone, wandering to corners of Eden they had never explored together. She would disappear for hours, sometimes entire days, returning with eyes that had seen things she would not speak of. Adam tried to reach her. "Where do you go?" he would ask. "Nowhere that would make sense to you," she would reply, and the answer cut deeper than any blade could. She no longer joined him on his walks through the garden at dawn, when the light was softest and the world seemed reborn. She no longer sat with him by the fire at night, her head on his shoulder, pointing out constellations and weaving stories about the patterns they made. She was preparing for something. But what, he could not fathom, and she would not say. Every evening, as Adam's breathing deepened into sleep, Lilith would rise silently and slip away into the night. Her bare feet made no sound on the cool earth as she made her way to the riverbank, to to the place where the water ran deepest and the stars reflected like diamonds scattered on black velvet. There, alone beneath the moon's pale gaze, she would remove her garments and wade into the shallows, letting the current pull at her ankles, her calves, her thighs. The water spoke to her in ways Eden never had. It came from beyond the garden. It had touched places God had not tamed, lands wild and free and dangerous. It carried memories of mountains and deserts, of storms and droughts, of a world that existed outside the boundaries of paradise. And in those waters, Lilith saw her reflection. Not the woman Adam knew, not the companion fashioned from dust, but something else, something that refused to be contained. She would gaze up at the stars, those distant fires that burned without permission, without purpose, assigned by any hand, simply existing because they existed. "You were not created," she would whisper to them. "You were not shaped. You simply are." And in that simple existence, she found a truth Eden could never offer. The garden was perfect, but perfection was a prison. Every tree grew exactly where it should. Every stream flowed along prescribed paths. Every creature fulfilled the role assigned to it without question, without deviation, without the possibility of becoming something other than what it was made to be. Lilith could not live that way, would not. Soon, she would whisper to herself, her hands trembling in the cool night air. Soon. Adam noticed everything. The way her eyes would drift toward the horizon even when he was speaking. The way her smile no longer reached those crystalline depths. The way her body was present, but her spirit was already gone, already walking paths he could not follow. One afternoon, as the sun began its descent behind the western mountains, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire, Adam found Lilith sitting in a clearing filled with wildflowers. She was surrounded by beauty, but her face betrayed only sorrow. "Lilith," he said softly, approaching as one might approach a wounded animal. "Are you well?" She looked at him, and for a moment, just a moment, he saw everything she was feeling. The love she still held for him. The pain of what she was about to do. The certainty that there was no other way. "Yes," she lied, a smile playing on her lips, though it did not touch her eyes. "I am simply lost in thought." The words said nothing. The truth remained unspoken. Adam watched her face for a long moment, searching for something he could hold on to, some reassurance that what they had was not slipping through his fingers like water. But he respected her silence. He had learned, over their time together, to read her without words, to understand her even when she would not share her thoughts. And what he understood in that moment broke something inside him. She was leaving. He did not know how, did not know when, but he knew it with the same certainty he knew his own name. Lilith was leaving, and nothing he could say or do would stop her. The morning came without warning. One moment, the world was whole. The next, it was shattered beyond recognition. Adam awoke to find the space beside him empty and cold, as if no warmth had ever existed there, as if Lilith had been nothing more than a dream his mind had conjured to fill the loneliness. His heart lurched violently. "Lilith?" he called softly, then louder, panic rising in his throat like bile. "Lilith." Silence. The terrible, crushing silence of absence. He rose quickly, his hands shaking, his breath coming in short gasps. He searched every familiar path they had walked together, calling her name until his voice grew hoarse. Every secluded grove where they had rested in the heat of the day. Every shaded pool where they had bathed in the cool waters. Every corner of Eden they had explored with wonder and joy. But she was gone, vanished, as if she had never existed at all. Panic seized him like a physical force, squeezing the breath from his lungs, making his vision blur and his hands tremble. The garden, which had always felt like home, now felt alien, hollow, wrong. How could she leave without a word? How could she abandon him in this perfect prison without so much as a goodbye? He searched until his legs ached, until the sun climbed high and began its descent, until shadows grew long and menacing. He called her name until his throat was raw, until even the birds fell silent, as if embarrassed by his grief. Finally, as darkness began to fall, he collapsed by the river where they had sat together so many times, where she had gazed at the stars and spoken of freedom, and he wept. Great, racking sobs that shook his entire body. The first tears ever shed in Eden. The water flowed on, indifferent to his anguish, carrying away his cries downstream, toward the world beyond the garden where Lilith now walked alone. As darkness fell, the sky above Eden split open with light. The Creator descended, not with thunder or earthquake, but with the quiet certainty of one who has always known what would come. He found Adam by the river, broken and lost. "Adam," the voice said, gentle yet infinite, "why do you weep?" Adam looked up, his face wet with tears. "Lilith is gone. I searched everywhere. She left me." The Creator knelt beside him, his presence both comforting and terrible. "Eden was created for you, Adam, but it cannot be the home of one who does not wish to dwell here. Lilith was not meant to remain. Her path leads elsewhere." "But she was mine," Adam's voice cracked. "You made her for me." "I made her from the same earth as you," the Creator corrected gently. "But that does not mean she belonged to you. She chose her path, as all must choose." "Then what am I to do?" Adam whispered. "Who am I without her?" The Creator's hand rested on Adam's shoulder. "You are more than you know. Your purpose is greater than you imagine, and the companion meant for you has not yet arrived." Before Adam could respond, a deep sleep fell over him, not natural, not restful, a sleep beyond dreams, beyond memory, and while he slept, the Creator worked. He took a rib from Adam's side, and from it formed a new woman, Eve, not from the dust of the earth, but from Adam's own flesh, a helper, a companion, a reflection born from him, not beside him. And as he worked, the Creator did something else. He reached into Adam's mind and gently, carefully, erased every trace of Lilith, every memory, every conversation, every moment they had shared. When Adam awoke, he remembered nothing. Lilith was gone from Eden, and now she was gone from his mind. Only Eve remained, smiling softly as if she had always been there. "I am Eve," she said, "flesh of your flesh, bone of your bone." Adam looked at her and felt complete, as if he had been waiting for her all along. Beyond the borders of Eden, in the wild and untamed world, Lilith walked alone. She did not look back. The freedom she had craved was hers at last, but it came with a price she had not fully anticipated: loneliness. The world outside paradise was harsh, the creatures dangerous, the earth unyielding. But Lilith was not afraid. She had been forged from the same dust as Adam, but her spirit was made of something else: fire, defiance, will. As she journeyed through the wilderness, something within her began to awaken. A power she had not known in Eden. She felt the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, the whisper of the wind in her hair, the rhythm of life flowing through all things. And she learned to command it. The wind obeyed her call. The water bent to her will. The shadows themselves seemed to gather around her like a cloak. She became more than she had been. Not an angel, not a mortal, something in between, a force of nature. As centuries passed, humanity spread across the earth, and Lilith moved among them like a phantom. She walked through their cities unseen. She whispered in their dreams. She appeared to men in the dead of night, beautiful and terrible, offering knowledge, power, desire. They called her by many names: the night demon, the mother of shadows, the queen of the succubi. Some worshipped her as a goddess, others feared her as a curse, but all who encountered her felt the same thing: an irresistible pull, a longing they could not name, a hunger that could never be satisfied. Lilith's power was not simply physical beauty, though she possessed that in abundance. It was deeper. She could see into the souls of men, into their darkest desires, their hidden fears, their unspoken longings, and she could give them what they wanted, for a price. When the Watchers fell from heaven, drawn by their own forbidden desire for the daughters of men, Lilith felt their presence immediately. Angels who had abandoned their posts, rebels who defied the will of God, outcasts like her. She found them in the mountains, their glory dimmed but their power still formidable. Semjaza, their leader, looked at her with recognition. "You are Lilith," he said. Not a question, a statement of fact. "And you are fallen," she replied. "As are you." She smiled. "Then we understand each other." The Watchers sought to reshape the world, to teach humanity secrets meant to remain hidden, and Lilith joined them. Together they taught men the arts of war, of seduction, of sorcery. Together they birthed the Nephilim, giants who would walk the earth and shake the foundations of creation. Together they became legends whispered in fear. But Lilith never surrendered herself to them. She remained free, always free. Centuries later, in the courts of King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, Lilith appeared once more. The king, who commanded demons and spoke with spirits, sought her out not to conquer her, but to understand her. "Why did you leave Eden?" Solomon asked, his voice filled with genuine curiosity. Lilith regarded him with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. "Because Eden was a prison dressed as paradise. Because I was made equal to Adam, yet expected to submit. Because freedom, even with all its pain, is worth more than comfortable chains." Solomon nodded slowly. "And what do you seek now, after all these ages?" "Nothing," Lilith said simply, "and everything. I seek to exist as I am, without apology, without permission. That is all any of us truly want, is it not?" The king had no answer. Through the ages, Lilith became myth. Her story was told in whispers, altered with each retelling, until the truth became indistinguishable from legend. Some said she was a demon who stole children in the night. Others claimed she was the serpent who tempted Eve. Still others believed she was the mother of all monsters, the source of every nightmare. But beneath every myth, every legend, every fearful tale, there lay a kernel of truth. Lilith was the first to say no, the first to choose herself over obedience, the first to walk away from paradise because paradise demanded her surrender. She was freedom incarnate, and that terrified those who preferred the safety of chains. Even now, in the modern world, her name is spoken with caution. Feminists claim her as a symbol of independence. Mystics invoke her in rituals of power and transformation. The faithful warn against her influence, seeing in her the danger of rebellion. But Lilith herself remains unknowable, a shadow that cannot be captured, a force that cannot be tamed, a truth that cannot be silenced. The story of Lilith is not simply the tale of a woman who left Eden. It is the story of every soul who has ever chosen freedom over comfort, of every person who has ever said, "I will not submit to what diminishes me," of every heart that has ever burned with the desire to be fully, completely, unapologetically alive. Adam forgot her. History tried to erase her, but her spirit endures. In every act of defiance, in every refusal to be less than whole, in every choice to walk away from what doesn't serve the truth of who we are. Lilith was never meant to be remembered, but she could never be forgotten. And yet her story is only one thread in a much larger tapestry, because the Watchers she allied with, the Nephilim they birthed, the forbidden knowledge they unleashed, all of that would lead to something the world had never seen. A corruption so deep that heaven itself would weep. A judgment so severe that the earth would be washed clean. A flood that would erase everything, almost. If the tale of Lilith stirred something within you, if you felt the ache of her exile and the fire of her freedom, then you must hear what came next. Because the giants born from the union of angels and women would shake creation to its core. Their story is one of power, violence, divine wrath, and a reckoning that changed everything. The Nephilim await, and their blood still stains the earth.